It's the 44th season on the FIL Luge World Cup Tour, the first season with brand new title sponsor Eberspeche. Welcome to the women's luge competition from Altenberg, Germany. The temperature at 4 degrees Celsius, that's over 40 degrees Fahrenheit, warm conditions, although the ice on the track is maintaining an even freezing temperature. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. This is an interesting track, a fun track, and a challenging track now in its 40th year. To tell us a little bit more about the course and today's competition, I'm pleased to introduce my longtime broadcast partner, John Morgan. John, what can you tell us about Altenberg that hasn't already been said?
Well, the track itself, built way back as an East German sports training center in the mid-'80s, it's one of the most challenging tracks on tour for any one of the sliding sports, bobsled, luge, or skeleton. They've held the two world championships two previous times for luge. And, you know, the tight, quick turns, it's not about speed on this track. Look at this long straightaway into this Kreisel, 280-degree whip around. You exit underneath where you enter the curve, and then you got this two-corner combination, 11, 12. Come at you very quick. Now the big pressure curve, 13, big left, 14. A lot of G-forces here. Little uphill section. Got to stay straight. 15, 16. This is where you can get up to 74 miles an hour. And a lot of time on the bottom part of the track we saw in doubles, Tim. And the track's got a persona of its own. It's one of the most challenging on the tour, and all the athletes think about when they come to Altenberg.
Track record has not been challenged in Innsbruck nor in Altenberg so far this year, and due in part to the warm temperatures. 28 have qualified for this race either yesterday in the Nations Cup or through their seeded placements. And one to keep an eye on very early is Natalie Geisenberger, the defending Olympic champion, won yesterday's Nations Cup, and she did it with a time faster than any of the seeded athletes had during the final day of training. So Natalie is back in a big way, but they're all chasing the final sled to go here. Julia Tobitz, who leads the World Cup, is the defending World Cup champion and swept the two races in Innsbruck last week. Underway with our lone entrant from Poland, Natalia Jamroz.
No Polish athlete has ever won a female. I take that back. There was one in Olong in 1971, but we saw when we just covered the men's event, the doubles event, Tim, that the Polish were pretty formidable in the 60s, winning gold and silver in doubles in 63. So it's good to see the Polish coming back out to the sport of luge.
And some of these names you're talking about, John, you talked about Imst earlier and Olang just now. These were fixtures. These were some of the homes of the sport of luge in the early days of World Cup.
Kornicia in Poland hosted the World Championships twice, way back in '58 and also in '62. So, and I know there was a number of bobsled tracks back in the 50s and 60s. So she's the rabbit. First person down, the track looks glistening. They spritzed it. It's an hour ago when the doubles event was over.
Several skids along the way, including right there at the finish curve, but a 55.093 as a point of relative perspective. That's 3 seconds off of the track record. But as I mentioned, John, even the best in the world today probably won't come within 3-4 tenths of that record.
Yeah, we didn't see it, so I think we got with about a half second of the doubles record, but big smile on her face, Tim, through and down.
And really quickly, Kuba tweets in with his fingers crossed from Natalia from Poland. She started her career at a small club called Typhoon Novi Sach because her uncle was the coach there. Glad to see they're watching from Poland. And John, do you know over 70 nations tuned in last week for our opening week coverage? I believe we have over 70 watching today as well, including Vietnam.
Tim, we had about a 400% increase in China viewers from last year's first World Cup. Here's our first athlete from Poland.
And this is from Moldavia.
Moldavia, I'm sorry.
Doina Desaloy having a little adventure there at the start, and her coach Maciej Korawski was quick to point out that this is history, John. This is the first time ever a Moldavian woman has qualified for a World Cup race.
Well,
so welcome.
Congratulations to Moldavia, but congratulations to the FIL, adding another country flag to the mix. Little looping there in the Kreisel. Watch her in the exit. Yeah, that loop. That got her out of sync on the exit, and but she recovered well. It's for athletes like this, Tim, it's not about placing on motion, it's qualifying and competing.
And getting down safely.
Getting down. This is not Innsbruck or Winterberg. This is a track that catches your attention.
There's Maciej Korawski. He's in his second year of retirement, coaching the smaller FIL nations. He was also very proud of the fact that he's got a Bosnian entry tomorrow in the men's competition, and he's helping out with the British team as well, which has some racers taking part this weekend.
Congratulations to this young lady, made history. And watch her up above the blue marks. Then the centrifugal force brings you down. She almost disappears up in the outlet. Now watch, she tries to really steer hard and get out and hit the wall.
Great to see Daria Obratov qualify yesterday in the Nations Cup for the Netherlands. I was chatting with her sister Danya late yesterday, who crashed during training and messed up her face, she said. That's her exact quote, and her neck. So decided to not even race yesterday in the qualifying event. The Obratov sisters formerly represented Croatia, but they got a sweet deal for Netherlands. That the nation said they would support these two ladies, providing they help to develop the sport in a country which, John, always has very strict Olympic qualification standards.
Yeah, they must have some kind of Dutch parent or something because they won't get very far with qualifying for the Olympic team.
No, they do have a Dutch connection. They also speak fluent English. Ooh, she's doing a lot of steering there.
Watch out here in the exit. And she gets away with it. She had her legs spread out a little bit there. And, hey, she's green numbers. Pretty good run, Tim. I don't want to give her the commentator's jinx down here in the speed part of the track. But, again, I've been watching sleds come down the Altenberg tracks. That's my first time here in 87. Can't read that. But, this track's always caught the attention of anybody coming here to compete. And just disappointing. It's like a ghost town to see no spectators. Again, we usually have 3,000 spectators. 1,500 of them still right here at the finish area.
Yeah, to that earlier point, we've seen some of the best sleds in the world crash on this course, sometimes without warning. You just come out at 9 hard, and keep in mind we had the doubles earlier where they started just above curve 9. Now we're several turns above that here at the women's start. So they're carrying a little more speed into the tricky areas. Tova Kohala of Sweden did not qualify last week. Her brother did in the men's race. They both have qualified for this week's World Cup.
Families, sleds.
If I have more questions or comments, if you're watching, tweet us at Luge Announcer. Also, you can email us luge.announcer@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your insights on this number 2 World Cup of the season.
Clean, green numbers. Now red, since I said that. Red, back to green. Speed part of the track coming up. She's not bad. Speed, 112 kilometers. The best speeds for the doubles. We got somebody up to 110.
Down, yes. Tova into the lead. Last few seasons, we've only seen Tova at the Lillehammer race, maybe one other race, Lillehammer sometimes. And it would be nice to see Sweden represented week in and week out this year. The country, John, interestingly, Scandinavian ski crazy country of Sweden has never hosted a Winter Olympics.
Oh, and they've had plenty of world championships up there. 1981, Hammerstrand, 67 they had it up there. In 75, 81. So there's 3 times. So they've had
program of South Korea. It appears at my end, John, I'm having a little video issue. Are you?
No, doing well. You know, she had 3 numbers.
Okay, I'm technically back. I apologize for that. So Elaine, yeah, she was adopted by the South Korean program. She got her citizenship. She finished 8th at the Olympic Games.
Oh, you heard a little scratch there. But she's got a pretty solid lead, Tim. 112 kilometer speed, 3,300's up, 111. Not the best speed, but should be the leader, 2,500s or so.
Yeah, we almost hit that to the 100th. So Eileen Frisch, South Korea into the early lead. It's Korea, Sweden, and Netherlands. Just a lot of fun to see those 3 flags, 4 different
nice
flags.
To see 4 different flags. I love seeing that in the
That's right.
sports. Sometimes too often you see one nation dominating, and look at these lines. She's on the take on early, gives her a choice to come off at her where she wants to come off. Crossover of 13-14. You know, look at her left toe. Look at her pointing on that Kufun to get it off the curve. That's the speed parts of the track.
Coach Norbert Locke of the powerful German program. He has 4 women entered into today's race coming up in a bit. But next up, Slovakia, Katarina Simatakova, 22-year-old. Her brother will race tomorrow in the men's competition. And John, you were talking about how nice it is to see all of these different nations, the different flags, and that's the case early in run number 1 of these competitions because the seeded athletes go fast, or go last. They also go fast. But as you know, John, in a lot of winter sports, the seeded, the best in the world go first.
Yeah, in bobsled, they've changed it a couple times. I really like the qualifying procedure, Nations Cup and everything, the day before the event here at Luge. I've always proposed that in bobsled, but I really like the seeding.
You like it more than a lot of the athletes do because that Nations Cup qualifying is one of the most stressful days of the week, probably the most stressful day. 1 heat to try to get into the main draw.
Well, I sort of like it. You know, this is supposed to be the best of the best. 400th lead, Tim.
And there's
That's
her brother,
a good run.
Jakub Simatakova, into first place. So now we have another flag. Slovakia, South Korea, Sweden, Netherlands, Poland, Moldavia. Those are the 6 that have come down. All told, I believe 118 athletes from 14 different nations competing this weekend.
Good lines. Can't fault any of that. Only a 400th lead. Look at that nice high. Ooh, a little bit of late looked like there in 13 as she crossed over into 14.
Nina Zugler, the first of the 4 Italians in today's race. It's really Andrea Fetter and 3 very young Italians that are just getting their first or second season look.
The daughter of the greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time. Even the Germans, who think they own the sport of luge, will tell you that Armin is the greatest.
Just the fact that he had 6 straight Olympics where he medaled,
which no one's ever done.
In any winter, summer.
That's right.
That's, if you just think of that, that is an amazing feat. And of course, he's, doing it on his home track in Cesana, 2006. Here's his young 19-year-old daughter, and good form, and just right down the middle in green numbers. Good crossover, speed, 112 speed. She's got a half-second lead, 115.3 kilometers.
That's 71.6 miles per hour. We could see close to 80 tomorrow
7.
for the
Look
men.
at there's the dad. Boy.
53.108. It was good lines. And John, great form on the sled. She stayed low and relaxed.
Tim, 73 hundredths ahead. That's an eternity of time for anybody coming down the track. And, she's one of the younger athletes in the field. I didn't see this type of result from her last season, but 1 year more under her belt. Last year was her first season of the World Cup Tour, Tim?
She actually debuted 2 years ago in
2 years
Eagles,
ago?
but maybe raced only twice on the senior tour that year.
Perfect form. Wow. You gotta like that, Nina.
Okay, here's Veronica
7,300.
Ravenna representing Argentina, 22 years old, makes her home in Whistler, where the World Championships were originally scheduled this year in Canada. She told me she was working very hard on her start. She has short arms by her own admission, and that's a liability in this sport of luge at the start.
Well, she's got 2,300's deficiency too. Zugler, who just came down, but she's got a separation of 7,300. So she stays at this pace. She could finish in the top three. 4,200's back. She wants to stay about 7,500's back. She'll be second.
But one of her goals was just to qualify for all of the World Cups out of the Nations Cup, and she has. She's made it 2 for 2 into the main field. Ooh.
Oh, watch out now. This is not good. She still doesn't have the sled under control, and she had a great run going, and then the exit of 14 got her.
So Norbert Locke is in that box because Veronica has been training the last 2 seasons with the Germans. She says that has been a big help for her, although maybe not enough time here in Altenberg for training.
The Germans do a great job with developing nations. They do the same thing with bobsled and skeleton. And, they know that the more nations they develop, the better off the sport is. Ooh, these pictures, I was worried about her going right to the lip here at 15. And she finally got it under control here in the finish, Tim. But, boy, she had a good run going to the exit of 14. She doesn't have to get sled checked, though.
27th place in the World Cup opener last week in Innsbruck from Ukraine. It's 20-year-old Olena Shmaha. She's a student from Kiev, enjoys dancing in her spare time. 3 paddles, conservative start, but settles pretty safely.
800's deficiency at the start.
John, later this year, this Altenberg track, there are no more luge races to be held here, but it will host the IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Championships for the 2nd year in a row. Has that ever happened? One track hosting the world 2 years in a row.
Tim, I was just thinking that. I don't think so. I mean,
all bets are off in this pandemic year. Anything to make the racing happen.
I'm in Lake Placid, New York, and that, was the site of the World Championships. And, ooh, watch out.
Spot, same result.
She did it a little above it. She did it in the exit 11, 12.
Oh, that's right.
13, 14 is where the other mistake was made. And she still doesn't have the sled under control. And boy, the track is starting to show some teeth. But this is Altenberg. This is not Innsbruck.
Is the weather a factor on that, John? The fact that the temperature's around 40?
No. This is just driver error, in my opinion. Of course, it's easy to sit here in the booth, Tim, and say that. But here at 11, a little too high. Pressure on 11, gets out too early. 12, excuse me. And then, boy, to 13. Go sideways like that. You couldn't do that in a bobsled. And that she makes the mistake in the exit of 12. She's still down here in the exit of 14 into 15. Still hasn't corrected. And every picture tells a story with the coach.
Nina Zugler leads, and another famous offspring of a famous luger up now. Hanna Prock, who made the 2018 Olympic team for Austria just a few weeks after turning 18.
Well, another daughter of a famous luge athlete. I mean, Marcus Prock, all I can think about, and coming from the bobsled world, is the legendary battles he had with Georg Hack. They might have been the most competitive of any duo in the sport.
The Ali Frazier of luge.
Yeah, no, really.
Right?
Those two were, it was the 94 Olympics. Yeah, the 94 Olympics. Prock held the lead all 3 heats. Hackel got him in the final heat to win the gold. And, first of his many gold medals. And I think he won 3 straight Olympic gold medals. 2100s.
He owned the 90s.
Yeah. 1400s back. Could be top 3, so we could the leaderboard. Look at this.
Second place. She had a lot of foot taps, but that at least kept her off of the walls. So right now, first and second are the daughters of two athletes who together
legends.
have 20 overall World Cup titles and 9 Olympic medals.
You know, it's also presents, I mean, there's a lot of family in the sport. We talked about it with the first couple sleds, but the two daughters of legends in the sport leading. I mean, I wish the race would end right now, Tim. It would be a great retro throwback. Look at the foot come down there. That's the exit of 12, but she hangs in there.
Now from Italy, Marianne Oberhofer. She will turn 21 next week. She's from Miranza in Südtirol, of course, which is a suburb of the city of Brixen. Had a top 16 last year. 16th place is the World Cup finale in Koenigsegg.
Well, 2000s lead, which isn't a lot. And she's already lost it back half second. The leader, Zogler. Let's see the drift. No, pretty good. 1400, so she's maybe stopped the bleeding a little bit.
The lines are certainly a lot cleaner.
Yeah, cleaner. Well, this is where the trouble's been, right here on the exit of 12. That's fine. 13 to 14. Look at the feet. Oh,
same issue.
Yeah.
3 of the last 4
watch out here.
sleds.
Yeah. Still doesn't have the sled under control. And boy, the Altenberg track is, there's Armin Zogel looking on.
Down safely is an achievement, and this is a pretty steep outrun. People don't realize, so she's just going to barely make it there. Yeah, she has to paddle her way to this finish ramp, which is another 30 meters or so ahead of where she comes to a stop.
Well, everything was fine. Exit of 14. Got out of there too early, Tim. But watch this climb. Whoa. That curve 15. 16, she gets it under control, but you know what that vision looks like.
It's Zugler ahead of Prock and Simanikova, and now Natalie Mogg, whose 18th place finish last week knocked her right out of the seeded group. Natalie was telling me the most challenging thing for her in this sport is the mental aspect of the game, especially when things aren't going well. She finds it hard to regroup, so let's see if she can regroup here after the 18th last week.
23 years old, 800s deficiency there. Comfortable, quiet steering there. Lost more time. Exit, decent. Heads up though. And she's still looking all the way. Rich in Altenberg. I don't blame anybody for that.
Well, a little better in this transition than the last several sleds.
Yeah, she's hanging in there. Only 2,400, 3,000s, 3,500s back. 30, there you go.
0.3 of a second back. Her speed of 71.2 is the second fastest so far.
Did well.
And it was a clean run. How about
Lost
this ice, John?
Yeah, I think the ice is fine. I think she lost most of her time up top. I'd like to say, stopped the bleeding about Kreisel and held on. She's in second.
It's equipment that's set up by the German coaching staff, so if that's any indication, I'm not quite sure what it would be, but it'll be interesting to see when the 4 German women come down shortly.
Little issue on the exit of 14. Not as bad as the previous few sleds.
Respectable 6th place showing yesterday in the qualifying Nations Cup race for this Latvian, Zigita Brzezina, 20-year-old from Sigulda. Her motto, John, on her biography is "From Thorns to Stars." I wrote that down because I'm not quite sure what that means.
What that means.
Yeah,
might be a language issue there, Tim, translation. But you know, from that sliding nation of Latvia. Wow. You know, when I first started seeing Russian athletes here in Altenberg, In the first events I saw here in '87, the Russian athletes were really Latvians. And of course, when the wall came down, the Latvians started becoming more dominant. In fact, all those gold medals that they won in bobsledding were Latvians.
And John, even before the quote wall came down, you and I once covered a bobsled race where the Soviets showed up and changed their uniforms to say Latvia just moments before the start of the race. If that wasn't a political statement in sport, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that was 1990, right after the wall came down. It was an event in Lake Placid to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Olympics in Lake Placid, and they invited a few nations over, and the Latvians came, and Tim, it was a sort of a demonstration of national pride.
And the wall had come down, but it was the Soviet breakup, which was just a few months after that.
Well, look at the double take there. Look at her arms come out. She wasn't comfortable around curve one. But again, 20 years old. And what Latvia has done with the least amount of people in that country and how prolific they are in the sliding sports is really, really unbelievable.
All right, Lisa Schulte has proven what she can do on her home track in Eagles outside of Innsbruck, where each of the last 2 seasons she's opened up with 6th place finishes. Now the challenge is to do it around the world on some of the other tracks, including here the tough track in Altenberg. 0.08 of a second up on Nina Ziegler at the first split.
Pretty good starter, the 5th and 6th best starter in last week's race. And Tim, young, and another one of these Austrians that are they brought up. I mean, whenever you go to an event in Austria, you see all these young 6, 8, 10-year-old athletes coming down the track in their junior program. Same as you see in Berchtesgaden when you go over there to the Königssee track. But, the Austrians did pretty well. They won the doubles event earlier today.
They sure did. They're off to a great start in both men's and doubles this young season. Schulte to the finish line, and she's just behind by 300ths of a second, 28 thousandths exactly. So it's Italy, Austria, and Austria in the top 3, as now, John, that leaderboard begins to normalize a bit.
Yep, and Nina Ziegler still on top of the leaderboard. I don't know what her best finish ever is, Tim, but she could pull out a top 10 here in this first group.
I'll get our crack research team on that to find out. Yeah.
Look at the lines. You can see Schulte's got a little bit higher line on the curve. Now in the crossover, look at her right foot. Kufin crossing over into 14. Her left foot now turns the sled. Coach likes it.
Ekaterina Baturina of Russia, the first of the Russians to hit the ice. She took a lot of last season off, and when I say she took it off, it certainly wasn't by her own decision, but she was left off of the Russian team. She traveled, but didn't, and sometimes racing the Nations Cup as a non-qualifier. That takes a lot of patience. 17th last week in the Eagles.
It's close, a couple hundredths, and that's not perfect 200ths, but you can get 200ths back with the great exit here. You got to start slingshot to the bottom part of the track. Okay, accomplished in green. Great lines here. Now into 13, 14. Can she get through that albatross? And she does, but she's lost time back. Speed.
Just 0.02 of a second at the last split.
Speed there, 500s deficiency. So Nina Ziegler picks another more experienced slider off.
The most experienced so far of the first 14 that have come down.
I think we're seeing the greatest of all time's daughter maybe post her best event ever. At the moment, there's still another heat to go, of course, and there's still some very formidable sliders yet to come.
Well, 15 of 28 have made it down the track, with Ziegler continuing to lead the way. And now we work our way to the podium finishers yesterday in the Nations Cup. The top 3 waiting on deck, the Olympic medalists, Altenberg and Geisenberger. But here's Verena Hofa, now up for Italy, the third of 4 from Südtirol. 19 years old. Raced just once in each of the last 2 years. But she did finish 6th in the World Championship under 23 race. Under 13 race would be interesting.
One of the greatest luge female athlete that I knew was Gerda Weissensteiner, who not only did she win the World Championships in Lillehammer in '95, she won in 93 in Calgary, but she also won the Olympic gold medal. And then she went on 10 to 2006, transferred over to bobsled, won a bronze medal in bobsledding in 2006 in her home track in Cesano.
There's been a lot of crossover between the two sports over the years, including Olympic medals. Susie Erdman
did the same. In fact, she was the silver medalist that when Weissensteiner won. She was on the podium in that Olympic Games, and then she went on to win a medal in 2002.
Third place right now for Hofa. It's Italy, Austria, Italy, Russia, the top 4 at the moment, as we make our way to potentially the race favorites. In fact, 3 Germans in a row getting ready to go, and the 4th German will be the last to go in another 15 minutes or so.
I don't think Nina Ziegler is going to be on top of the leaderboard here coming up pretty quick, but she's done great. These lines, that's real high there. When you see the sled almost disappear there on 13, might be a little late getting in there. And she's happy.
All right, Diana Eitberger told me earlier today that this is just not one of her favorite tracks. She's always struggled on this track. That said, John, she came back from maternity leave with a pair of podiums last week in her first race back. The Olympic silver medalist and new mom now on course.
A couple new moms out here. Ooh, that looked like a little bit. I hope that wasn't by design, but maybe, because this is a big-time home track for her.
She is originally from the Thuringian section of Germany, Oberhof, where she still trains and aligns with that squad, but now lives in Munich. And I presume
red numbers. Well, only 200s, but
wow, this would be a score for Nina Ziegler to pick off Eitberger, even a comebacking Diana Eitberger.
Speed, she can manufacture speed down here. She's one of the best of the last decade, and here it goes. 115.8. That's the best speed of the day, and that's why she'll be the leader by only 1100s.
Sizzling fast down at the bottom of that track, 71.9 miles per hour. That's the first one in many to be faster than Ziegler, and you see the result as she has the lead by 1/10 of a second.
I think that's still having Nina Ziegler only be 1100s back. I think that's a great run for her. Eitberger, I don't know, a little drift there out of 9. She was in the red numbers here until right here, the exit of 11, 12, 13. She was in red, and then she turned it on.
Deanna safely down, and her close friend, Natalie Geisenberger, the only woman to beat her at the Olympic Games, now on course. Natalie, suffice to say, the greatest in the history of women's luge. 49 World Cup victories, 2 Olympic gold medals in women's luge, 1 bronze, and also gold in team relay.
A lot of hard work.
And like Deanna, a brand new mom just 6 months ago with the birth of Leo. Congratulations to Natalie and Marcus.
Green, as we would expect, and a perfect exit out of 9. 1700s up. Let's see if she hits those blue marks perfectly. Slingshot into 11. As good as anybody we've seen.
Unlike Diana, Natalie says this is a track she loves. You have to fight on this track, she said.
16.7. No one's been above 116 like this athlete.
To the finish, Natalie Geisenberger takes the lead. She does it by 0.4 of a second over the rest of the field.
Norbert knows that was a good run.
I got to believe this will hold at least until the final German, Julia Tobitz. I'm not going out on a big limb on that one. Natalie came back in a big way with 2 podiums last week in her first race after a year off.
Okay, check out the different lines. They look pretty much, the sled on the left's a little higher, but it looks pretty much the same. Of course, they're both Germans. They both been on this track, been down it 1,000 times. And needless to say, she probably hit all her marks on that run.
Cheyenne Rosenthal races out of Winterberg, where the tour moves to in 2 weeks. 20 years old, her second year as a full-time World Cup athlete. She had 1 top 10 in the 2 races in Innsbruck last week, a 7th.
Tim, we got to find out from her parents, how did they ever get Cheyenne for a name for a German? I've never seen any kind of, I've never met a German with the name Cheyenne for the first name.
It's a name you sometimes find with the French.
Yeah.
Or the Native Americans.
Yeah, we got a little Western culture in that name. But red numbers, late there, but she manufactures a nice straight line. She's holding a second place position. 11-12. Pretty good. 13. Ooh, looked a little bit early there. And then she drifts out of the exit of 14.
Drifts,
and
but she doesn't touch.
Touch, but she's 4/10 back. This is second.
7th.
Really, 7th?
7th, yeah. She wasn't going to be top 2 because Geisenberger and Eidberger held that distinction.
Oh, right.
But
boy, she lost a lot of time in the bottom, Tim.
It does appear, from what we've seen here, John, that the track is holding out okay, but you cannot make any sort of friction error because that time is compounded.
Yeah, she comes over here. Look, there's a skid. She skid between 13 and 14, and then she came out of 14. That in the crossover of 13 to 14, she made a mistake, and it cost her on the exit here too. That's where she lost a lot of time, Tim. So that's the speed part of the track.
It's the 2 Germans, Geisenberger and Eidberger, still leading. Nina Zugler is in 3rd place, and our thanks to Ken Childs, slidingonIce.com, going into his records to tell us that Nina's best finish ever in a World Cup, this is Zugler, was a 10th place, and that was last week on her home track in Innsbruck, Austria.
Thanks for that, Ken.
Now Ulla Zerna, 25-year-old from Sigulda, from Latvia, is on course, the second of the Latvians in today's race.
Quiet sound, little rattle. Great sound by the TV crew, the production crew. Smooth there, Tim. 2800's back. So she hits her marks well, and she'll exit clean. She does.
Zerna,
good.
12th place finisher at her only Olympics. That was 2018 in Pyeongchang, which she called her favorite track.
Good speed.
Half second off, and again, as I mentioned, Geisenberger and Eidberger are going to stay there for a while at the top of the leaderboard. Interesting around the finish curve as she's in 7th.
She beat one of the German sleds, though. She beat Rosenthal, right?
Mm-hmm. Which you would expect based on the last couple of years' results. Last week, the Germans swept 1, 2, 3 in both the World Cup and the sprint women's race. That was a page out of years past when the Germans, not regularly, but as often as not, swept the podium. That hasn't happened for several years. But the early trend, John, is Germany is back in its former dominance.
The 2 athletes that are leading the race are both mothers in the last year. They didn't compete last year. So that, I think, opened the door up for some.
But the Russians, the Austrians, and the USA, and some retired Canadians had been in the mix quite a bit in the last 5 years or so. Okay, here's Kendia Aparayod, someone else who we expect to see make her way onto the podium a little more regularly in the next few years. Still just 24 years old, 3rd full season as a World Cupper, or 4th rather.
Head up there, 9. Not perfect, but better than most. A little high on the marks. See what happens here in the exit. Comfortable. Looks good there. No skidding on the crossover. Pretty good there. Only 1800s back. Top 3 speed. It should be a top 3 run.
It will absolutely be a top 3 as she's second. So she really found some time down at the bottom. How about that?
Yeah.
Great to see. And incidentally, she says her favorite track is Oberhof. 2 things. One is we will be there next week. And second, there aren't a lot of people who list Oberhof as their favorite track.
Yeah. Well, Oberhof probably got those tight, quick turns like Sigulda, her home track. They're a lot common. You can't put 4-man bobsleds on the track. But hey, watch the crossover. No skidding here. Maybe a little bit, but exit here was perfect. Top 3 speed, second spot.
Your longtime colleague Duncan Kennedy has said on occasion that Oberhof's his favorite track. Okay, the world champion. It was an emotional victory last year in Sochi for Ekaterina Katnikova, as she won the world championship in both the large world race as well as the world championship sprint.
Nice quiet steer around that first curve. Looks like they're having easier times with the first curve than the doubles athletes did earlier today. 1400s back, that's a lot of time to overcome. So she's got to keep that at 1400s to have a chance. She gets it out to 2000s here, she might not be in the top 5.
All last season, the Russian sleds found a lot of speed down at the bottom. That did not happen last week in Innsbruck. Let's see if they found some sort of magic solution this week.
Here we'll find out she's got a chance to overcome the deficiency. 1500s to 1400s to 1300s. She is coming back. Speed, decent. Could be top 3.
Not bad.
Second.
It would seem that whatever they did all last year, they didn't do last week, but they've got that strategy back and setting up these sleds for the conditions.
15. She was 1500s behind up above curve 9. So from curve 9 on down,
she stayed tied with guys.
Stayed right there, yeah. So, well, she is wearing the bib, says world champion. So you could expect that. Crossover, do you see a skid? No, pretty good transition.
Gets the green light, always good news. Still 2 more Russians to come, but here is Austrian Madeline Egla, who mentioned earlier this week that after her shoulder injury, she had a subscapulous tendon cartilage damage. She suffered that in August. She had to reduce her start training to literally none. But, John, that did give her an opportunity to concentrate more on her
Good
glider.
Start. Look at her start, though.
Yeah, I mean, she's always been among the best, but she's taken a little hit due to this injury.
Having a bad shoulder doesn't really help your start technique in this sport.
No, not at all. And it's a common injury, unfortunately, because of all of the demands placed on the pull of the handles.
Boy, this is a really good run. 400s. Let's see if she can exit here. Nice, quiet exit. Ooh, took too much of that. Too much
had to
of 12.
correct with the foot tap. She'll go into the red, but can she hold on to a top 2?
Only 200s back, 115.6. Not the 116 speed we saw the leader, but should be top 3 maybe.
Nicely
Second.
done.
Wow.
52.705. Effectively pushing back Katnikova, Aparioda, and Eitberger into 3rd, 4th, and 5th for right now. So it's Germany, Austria, Russia, Latvia, the top 4. And we still have 5 remaining here in run number 1 in Altenberg.
Tim, the pictures, she got up a little high early here, and this is where a little bit of a skid, and she had to put the brakes on. The toes are out. Corrected well, though. She didn't let it affect her, especially here. 13, 14, so she made the mistake up at 12, but it didn't follow her down the rest of the track.
The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. Famous movie for the 60s. And Demchenko is up now. Ivanova coming up in a little bit. They both come off of very disappointing weeks in Innsbruck, but both are perennial World Cup medalists over the last few seasons.
Yeah, they had a very disappointing finish in Innsbruck. Bronze medalist in last year's World Championships.
Yeah, Victoria.
And a daughter of another two-time
Olympic
Olympic medalist.
Victoria
Albert
finished 8th last week in Innsbruck in the 2-heat race, back in 15th and last in the sprint.
Boy, you line up Proc, you line up Ziegler, and you line up Demchenko. There's some Olympic hardware hanging around their neck.
11.
Ooh, that's really
11
high.
medals, and this is the first crash
Wow.
we've seen. She maintains contact with the sled. That's a good early sign, John. That means she at least has the presence of mind, and now she wants to get back on that sled.
Sure, she wants to finish. She wants to finish. She'll be the first person to go unless someone else crashes. But, wow, Tim, it's like she fell asleep. You know, the 11-12 combination wasn't that bad. We were telling the story about her father. And,
well,
wow, she finished. Wow.
so good for her. And she is one of the gutsier athletes, John. And the story with Demchenko, scattered amongst her podium finishes and top fives, have been a series of spectacular crashes over the past several seasons. And she always finds a way to get back on that sled.
That's 12. That's where the problem started. And wow. It's just 11-12 combination is that two-corner combination, I say, is as tricky as any other track in the world. Lake Placid's got a couple, Whistler's got a couple up there with the 50-50 curve. But 11-12 in Altenberg, boy, have I seen action there in the course of the 3 decades I've been covering the sport on this track.
Well, great job by the track crew to all of a sudden get the track ready just like that for our next competitor. And a tip of the hat to the Ice Meister, Ralph Monday, who's done a great job here in Altenberg. And
he's been working the track. Tim, Ralph Monday's been working the track since the mid-'80s.
That's great. Experience counts for a lot in this sport. Andrea Vetter now on course, the final of the Italians. She had her first podium last season, late in the year.
Good start, like we talked about. The Italians are all. Green numbers.
Yep, Andrea has done well on this track in the past. She falls just into the red. Can she keep it top 2? She has to stay within a tenth of a second to be in second place.
She's high here. Watching here, 11-12. And took too much at 12. Corrects, 13-14. Not bad. This is very good. Speed, not very good. So she's going to fall back here. Maybe top 4. 6.
6 right now for Vetter, just ahead of her teammate Ziegler. The Italians have 2 in the top 7. Germany has 2 in the top 7 as well. There's an Austrian, a Russian, and a Latvian joining them.
Tim, she was a couple hundredths behind at Kreisel, and 43 hundredths behind at the bottom. That's a lot of time to lose. Look at 12. Look at the different angles. The sled on the left.
Different.
Yeah, the sled on the left at a lower line.
Okay, Tatiana Ivanova, another Russian who had a very disappointing opening weekend, but that said, her 14 World Cup career wins, second most among active women right now. And the biggest mystery with Ivanova is what happened last week. Well, that and how does she get all of her hair tucked inside that helmet?
Well, start, yeah, good enough to have the green numbers.
Tatiana was 20th in Innsbruck, and I can't think of the last time she was out of the top 15 in any World Cup race over the last several seasons.
The Russians really had a very poor performance last weekend.
Early indication today shows that the equipment at least is set up quite a bit better than it was in Innsbruck. And Demchenko was still close to the lead when she crashed. Ivanova is still in the green now.
Wow. Watch her on the crossover. Nice. She comes straight at us here, and she gets 116 kilometer speed. She's got it. This could be a leader. This is surprising, Tim. 20th place last week to this?
Yeah, but not that surprising when you're given what Ivanova has done. She's been as strong as anyone, including the Germans, over the past 2 or 3 years. So there she is. My prediction is wrong that Geisenberger would stay in front, at least with Tobitz, as Tatiana Ivanova, a quick return back to her usual form.
Yeah, but Tim, just from what we saw last week to this.
But again, we saw that from all of the Russians. It leads me to wonder whether that was somewhat technical and not all athletic.
Well, whatever they did with the setup of her sled, they should hit save, because that was something.
You saw how many positions up the Russians moved in doubles earlier today. 2 remain now in run number 1. Alica Teruma, the final of the Latvians, who had her first career victory last year, mid-February in Winterberg, Germany. She has an Olympic medal as part of the Latvian relay team in 2014.
900's out. Well, needs to keep it at 1200s to get a good top 6 or 7 finish. See what this says, 15, so she's still bleeding, but not very much.
A good showing, yes, last week in the sprint race where she stayed in the leader area for a long time, ended up just off of the podium in 4th place. Still in the red here, John, in trouble in that transition.
Exit of 14. The teeth of the Altenberg track got her. 4800's back. You know, that was 2 tenths right there, Tim. That's the speed part of the track. That's like throwing out a parachute. Hitting that wall twice.
7th place, all things considered, not bad. She's tied to the thousandths of a second in 7th place. Veta and Teruma.
Right here, bang. Put the feet down. You know, Tim, considering that could have been a lot worse. She let the sled, she just took her couple hits, took her penalty, moved on.
Last week, Julia Tobitz had a historical day that's only happened once before in World Cup Luge. She had 3 gold medals in a single day. Women's Luge, part of the Germany relay team, and then in the sprint. And John, it only gets better. Julia said a few days ago that the slide here in Altenberg is very special. She still considers this her home track, even though she's based out of the Oberhof region now. She grew up not far from here in Saxony.
Well, with all that, what you just said, I hope you didn't jinx her. I mean, she's you know, the winner of last week's race. This is her favorite track. Well, this young sliding star from Germany, 800ths down. That is a lot of time. So if it goes out to 12:15, I don't think she can do it, Tim.
Well, she's a bottom gainer in this sport.
Speed Merchant, 1700ths down. She's not coming back from that. Now the question is if she can keep in the top 3 or 4.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, she's going to need the magical 116-kilometer speed to do that.
Now she's losing a little more.
Look at the speed.
Not
That's the
bad,
best
yeah.
speed we've seen. I don't think anybody else has had that 116.9.
This could be 3rd place if she keeps it all together. 5th. So 52.771 for the World Cup leader and defending World Cup overall champion.
Maybe some mistakes up top, Tim, to be that far down before Kreisel. But the best speed on the bottom, the last sled down of the first heat, to achieve that type of speed on the bottom, she'll go before the other 4 sleds in the second run. Watch out if she really has a good run. She could really put a lot of pressure on for a medal in that second run.
The always smiling Julia Tobitz concludes run number 1 action here in Saxony, Germany. Julia Tobitz, she said her biggest challenge is nerves. She gets nervous a lot of the time at races, and she mentioned that wouldn't be as much of a problem this year because there are no spectators to try to impress family and friends there at the track.
Little looping there above those marks, above and below, but she did something right here in the bottom. She took a 1700s deficit and posted the best speed. This is the exit of 12, the spectacular pictures, the comparison. Talbot's looks like she's got a little higher line late. Maybe that's the fast line because she did have the best speed on the bottom of anybody.
All right, John, between them, they have 63 career World Cup victories. The Russian and the German will continue their duel, their renewed rivalry, as they have a lead over the rest of the field. Good hunt for the podium positions between the Austrian Eglad and the Russian Kotnikova, and there could be a lot of shuffling in run number 2 as everyone, including Demchenko, made it down and across the finish.